Hello and welcome to Net That Haul. So this is the double game week 29 show. It's FPL Nima here, joined with my co-host FPL Lens. How are you, Gabriel?
Nima, life is grand. FPL, yeah, not so much.
I'm sure we'll talk about our very differing feelings this game week. And I think Mariner said it was his worst game week of the season, so he's glad he's not here today. He's been sharing many highs in that top 100 chase. But for now, just to kind of get going, we're obviously a bit late, so sorry for the delay, guys. We're ready to go now, and we're going to keep this episode short and snappy with the tight turnaround between game weeks. So we're going to probably go hour 15. Let us know in the live chat if there's anything you want to cover for specifically game week 29 and 30, if we miss it in the kind of topics we look at today. If you're new to the channel, obviously, please do hit like if you enjoy the show, hit subscribe, and do become a member. So we've just announced as well that we're going to do early access to the Captaincy Metric and all the algos in the community tab on YouTube. Obviously, this will remain free forever on the matchup show each week, but we're just going to give it a couple of days, maybe in advance, for the haulers who sign up and support the channel's growth and help us make the program even better for all of you. So moving on then, just straight into the philosophy of the week, I think, Gabe, if we want to go there.
Yes, here we go. Let's this week we continue our ode to Women's History Month with a quote from another female philosopher. This week it's Hypatia that comes to us. She was an Egyptian astronomer and mathematician. So this quote goes as follows: "To understand the things that are at our door is the best preparation for understanding those that lie beyond." So to understand the things that are at our door is the best preparation for understanding those that lie beyond. And to me, this quote is about process. And I think we can best and most quickly understand what is in front of us instead of things that are a little bit further away as far as time. So if we understand like what's in our immediate vicinity, what we're seeing game week to game week, right? Then we can branch out and develop more complex like thoughts by linking them through time. And I think this is the best way to account for the only universal constant, which is change. By looking at the present and comparing it with the past, we see what the delta is, and then we can account for change in our decision making.
Yeah, no, I think this is definitely an interesting one for me. So I can kind of, from an FPL perspective, just taking it back to FPL for me specifically, this is something that I've kind of, this week, I feel like I've been on the right side of a lot of variants, and obviously others have not. So as happy as I am with my high game week score, I know there was weeks where it went very against me, like the week when people had kind of Bruno captain and I didn't. So I feel very fortunate to be on the right side of that. With that in mind, would you say it's utter madness then that, say, like someone like Coutinho, I've brought him in, I've captained him. Is it okay to bench him in game week 29? Is it okay to sell him to a double game weeker, even though he has a fixture in 30? So these are kind of things I'm looking at. So for me, it's like, I know what I've got, and part of me is kind of like, well, I got what I needed out of him. I'm not going to want him long term, and I want to move on. And I think that there's other opportunity elsewhere. So I feel like, let the others buy him. I've kind of got the points, and I'll run to the hills. But what do you think? Because
that's a great question, and it's a great application of FPL philosophy to actual FPL. And I wrote a little something on Coutinho. So I think those that brought Coutinho in, certainly those that captained him, were extremely lucky. And here's what I mean by this: you guys had no idea that he was going to play the 9. Let's be honest. I didn't hear anybody say, "I'm getting Coutinho because he's going to play the 9." And he played both the 9 and the false 9 for Villa. And then we had Watkins on the left, right? But he wasn't wide left, he was inside left. And then we had Ings inside right. And I think this combination, that triangle in there, Coutinho drops, Coutinho moves forward. When Coutinho drops, Watkins and Ings, they come together, and it's almost like a front two, and then the midfield becomes a diamond. And that kind of shape-shifting from Villa, we hadn't seen. And so that was brand new. So I think Coutinho's hauls could be sustainable because it seems like it's something you would from a system.
That this isn't going to like be a one-off flash in the pan either.
I don't think so, because it's the result of a system. Now I say you're lucky with the pick because none of us knew that this system was going to result in this way. but it was a good pick as well. And
So I think
this is
one thing I will say, yeah. So for me, like Ramsey was someone who I was gonna get, and I had to like get over my kind of predisposed decision to do that and be like, you know what, like if I get Ramsey, that's not someone I would captain. And I'd seen that like Ramsey had done well, but he does well every once in a while in a game where he gets a double-digit haul. But with Coutinho, I felt like there was a very interesting thing I read. So this is actually stats was kind of thrown to the side for me, as you say. I didn't know what system they were going to play, but it was just quotes from the manager. And there was a really great piece I read, and it convinced me for the captaincy. Maybe it was just the confirmation bias I needed, but it essentially said that he was kind of the happiest he's been, and he's finally happy to be playing football again. And the most telling part was the coach said, now he's finally fully fit, which implied that like prior to the fixtures this game week, he wasn't actually fit yet. So he'd not played for a long time, and it had taken a few games to even get fully fit and to start to be happy and to enjoy life there. And now they're talking about obviously making a bid for him and trying to keep him permanently. So for me, that kind of idea of like where he was in his headspace, where he was mentally, where he was physically, he was at his peak fitness. And this is someone who played with him in the team before back at Liverpool, So I'm like, okay, like this is it was similar to the whole kind of situation with Ben Rahma, right? At the start of the season. There's always that look for these little like just presses. I love reading the press quotes, and I'm like, ooh, something sounds spicy here. People haven't quite picked up on this. Like Coutinho wasn't fit before, but he's fit now, just this week.
I like when you get psychological.
Yeah, no, so I love that. And the other thing I would say is with Coutinho, I even made the point that his numbers, they were saying it was great over, say, a 6-week spell, but that was because he had one good game against Leeds and like a good 20-minute cameo against United. So really, in all those fixtures, he only had one great fixture where he performed. But then I thought, but then he plays Southampton and Leeds. So, there's nothing to lose here. Like if we're saying, his numbers weren't great in the fixtures outside of Leeds aren't going to get better. And kind of hearing about how the new coach wasn't going to necessarily suddenly make them defensively sound overnight and his system would still be relatively attacking, I thought, great, like why not target Leeds,
So and here's the other thing, and for managers like myself that we went the Ramsey route, right? This Coutinho's performance also meant that there was no need, nor were there any real holes for Ramsey to run into. So Coutinho like hauling in that way really just destroyed any value as far as FPL is concerned that Ramsey had, and that was like the double whammy for some people. So that it's variants like that, like just little tweaks and things that have changed, things this game week that have changed, and then to go to Leeds, I thought Leeds were actually not as bad as I thought they were going to be, and I have to give them credit because. I think they're showing some tactical awareness in terms of implementing Jesse Marsh's system, but I think Jesse Marsh is also, I last week with FPL Tornado, I talked about how Leeds will, if they go the full Jesse Marsh way, they'll be overcommitting to the ball, to winning the ball back, and everybody would shift, and the defenders would be 1v1. Now, in the goals against Villa. It was, Stuart Dallas was absolutely atrocious. Dallas and Ayling, who were two leaders last season, they've been terrible all season, and I think that they're a big reason why Leeds are suffering. But it was those 1v1s that they just got beat. And but as far as a system goes, I think I'm impressed. I thought it would go much worse as a system because what they're doing is they're plugging gaps instead of moving to win the ball. And then they're trying to capitalize on mistakes rather than committing too hard.
No, I think that was a really nice segment, actually. I think an intro to his management style on the last episodes. Before we go into kind of the longer range FDR and stuff, I thought let's just give a quick few shout outs on the show. So we actually have Craig P, who's a new member as well. So thanks for subscribing and supporting the channel. Evening to Mike Halpin as well, friend of the show. We've got Blue Danube guy, Ramanathan. We've got Blue Nix. Sadly, it's coffee today, actually, no champagne. It's a very late start. I want to try and still be awake by the end of the show. Davindra Raj, good to see you, mate. FPL Trini, another friend of the show. We've got FPL Tom Jones as well. Evening, mate. He's actually heading to bed, so I think he's going to watch it later. And he asks about Rafinha to Kulusevski, which we will cover in timestamp. So there's definitely some potential Rafinha sellers out there. He does face Norwich, obviously. So I don't know about that.
Do
I'm
not sell
starting
before
him.
Norwich.
Yeah, I don't think I would.
Although Trini
And
jumped
then
up to 3K this week, so maybe I should
wow,
listen to
okay, maybe
Trini.
he knows something.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is good. We got Akib as well. Hi to you, mate. Ante. I think Tom Jones is also a member. Actually, he's just subscribed as well, so that's why he's got the badge on his YouTube account. Couple more shout outs. We've got Will Wood. Good to see you. And oh, I see. Yeah, so the talk Ant is still mentioning on the philosophy of the week for the podcast listeners. I know Mariner always talks about the guy still being on the toilet, but for me, it's just that's kind of where philosophy begins. So I don't question it, but I don't know what your thoughts are.
Way back, there was an episode I told Mariner that the inspiration for the guy on the toilet was when I was in university, I wrote one of my philosophy papers about that, about the experience of pontificating on life while sitting and having a bowel movement, and how that movement creates a mental movement. so that's where that comes from.
At least it's got a background, and there is some context to the photo. I always wondered where he came from. No, I'm glad I found that out. That was definitely worth finding out.
I got an A on that paper, which is good for those that aren't on the letter system.
So he didn't get a bad game week then, actually. So he's just pontificating on live.
Yeah, but I got a bad game week, so.
I'm sure we won't go to a system where we put our ranks on the screen. I don't think we'll be one of those shows. This season, it might be fun. Mariner might think it would be great to say he's top 58 in the world, but then imagine one season where like 800K or 1 million. I don't know if I can go through a season with that number just next to my name every week after week. Like every time I've had a bad game week, seeing that would put me off streaming, I think.
I think that could be the perfect cure. I'll only put my game week rank on the screen if I'm over 1 million. If I'm under 1 million, I'm not going to show it.
I'm not going to show it.
Only 7 digits and above for the
ID.
Yeah, exactly. This is what not to do.
So we won't do the mini league this week, obviously, but just to say that the top 5 in it currently, including Mariner, who is 4th, they're all in the top 150 in the world. So it's very competitive. And I think top manager at the moment, he's actually sitting at 26th in the world in the league. So we'll do a full league update in one of the future episodes. But we thought today we'll just swiftly move on to the key questions of the game week. So as I was saying, obviously we've got the FDR and long range game week 32 here for the podcast listeners. In case you can come back and watch on the YouTube to see the graphic. The teams we're probably going to focus on and the matchups we're really interested in this week are kind of Arsenal and Tottenham primarily because they have the double and they do have a fixture in game week 30. Liverpool, obviously, they're a very big option there. I think most people already have Trent and Salah, so we'll be debating if any of the matchups maybe suit one of the third assets over the others. And then I think beyond that, there'll be a bit of chip strategy. So again, some people will be navigating 29 with free hits, wild cards or bench boost. So it'll be interesting to see if there's certain teams or matchups you should be targeting based on which chip strategy you're going down for the rest of the season. So, yeah, I think just to go right into it then, Arsenal is up there. I assume you would agree that the number 1 pick would be Saka. I think he is now the most transferred in after, obviously, people realised the 200,000 who bought Reece James early and realised he's out. I think they're probably selling him now for a -4, but it was nice again to see like everyone diverging different paths and early transfers being punished like they used to be. It makes my heart tingle. And I'm sorry to my friends who got priced out, but it's a risk. That's why we play. I live for this.
So, I mean, Saka is clearly, a cut above, right? I mean, he's a phenom. I do have some. So there's, and I think I'll get to Saka a little bit more later. I wanted to ask you some questions just in terms of some of the other players, right? One thing I noticed that is Odegaard Gundogan?
So yeah, it's an interesting debate. He could do that role, but I think with him, he's definitely more of a playmaker. Like he is starting to pop into the box for those goals, as you say. He is starting to show that position and that intelligence. I would say that actually him and Saka, they are the 2 most important attackers now in the entire team. So they're the 2 that, like Ben Foster on his channel, he was saying afterwards, these are Champions League players, like the desire they have to score, the quality they have when they were in my box, like we can't do anything against them. We're a relegation team. It was very frank. It was quite refreshing to hear a Premier League winning veteran goalkeeper say this stuff. So I was like, wow, like the Arsenal are in a much better situation than I thought. So for me, like he would be someone who I would be very interested in as a third attacker this week, Odegaard specifically. Lacazette, like, he is an option. He has had the most assists since like the turn of the year of any player, I think, in the forward line. But overall, for me, just the price difference is nearly 3 million cheaper for Odegaard. And the fact that I think he is as nailed on as it's going to get now. You've still got kind of the risk there with Martinelli, who's similar price. So Martinelli could still lose that spot to Smith Rowe. And therefore, I think Odegaard, for me, like, he's the one you want to double up with Saka. And I'm someone who, on wildcard, I've got double defense and Saka. And I'm actually very unhappy about that because I don't really think these two fixtures are great for Arsenal defensively. And I would much rather have the double attack. I was considering trying to get a Martinelli or an Odegaard. And that's why I asked the Coutinho question earlier. So I was looking at kind of Ben White to Robertson, Coutinho to Martinelli. I could just about afford that for a hit. Then James got ruled out. So now I'm kind of going to have to just keep White. I can't get to Robbo straight from James. My pre-plan was to get to Van Dijk. So I'm just going to have to go to Van Dijk now because it just seems obscene to take like a -8 off a wild card to then kind of say move Coutinho, White, and James to something like Rakulian, bloody Robbo and Martinelli. So that's a massive hit, right?
And I mean, one thing I noticed with Arsenal, and correct me if I'm wrong, like if I were on free hit, I would probably look at this option given their matchups. So Arsenal have 2 home games, which is really nice, and they're Leicester and Liverpool. And so obviously the Leicester has been playing better. I think Schmeichel has been playing better, right? And Liverpool, I mean, we all know who Liverpool are, and they're not easy to score on, but they can be exploited. But what I see on that right-hand side, I see Arsenal very much favoring that right-hand side tactically when it comes to the attack. And that triangle of Odegaard, Saka, and Lacazette, I think is their strength.
I just thought I'd put that up while you were talking about the right-hand side. Up at the
so Nima has just put up the zonal matchups, which is the next slide, and we can ping pong back and forth here in a little bit. And the matchup on that right-hand side for Gameweek 29 is 4.1 against Leicester, and then 2.9 against Liverpool. Against Liverpool, it's better in the center, but I think that's probably because Liverpool have rotated their center mids and sometimes have been vulnerable down the center this season in that area. But that I don't think the left side is appealing at all for Arsenal, and I think the best trio, like if I were to triple up on Arsenal for the double, it would be those 3. I think Lacazette, because there aren't any other strikers, all the forwards are terrible. And what's happening? So we ridiculed Mariner for his Lacazette call a couple of weeks ago. Well,
he's been hauling every week,
and he's hauling, and so I went back and it's interesting what Arsenal are doing, and it's they're also playing with those inside wingers, the inside forwards. So Saka on the right, and if it's Smith Rowe or Martinelli on the left, and now it's so the thing is, I think what Arteta has realized, the less times Lacazette touches the ball, the better. So now he shows up, he's given the ball, and it's 1 touch to somebody else, maybe 2 touches, maybe a turn, but usually if he takes 2 or more touches, then the attack usually breaks down. Let's be honest. But that 1 touch play, if the movement is good, which it has been recently, Lacazette has been really good at that, and that's where he's getting his assists. He's not necessarily like creative. He's not creating himself. He's just being what the team needs him to be, and the players around him are finishing.
Yeah, I think he's bringing out everyone else around him, like allowing them to kind of thrive. Something else, I guess, Mike Halpin, friend of the show, says it is a very good point. Since kind of Cedric's been forced in at right back, we've not felt as solid back there with Tomiyasu missing for the last 4 or 5 matches. So in that scenario, something I had noticed, and I didn't quite put it down to what he was saying, but it makes sense now, is I felt really happy that we'd kind of been less reliant on Tierney as the only way we create chances in the team. And when you look at game week 1, that fixture against Brentford, and everything was just basically Tierney running into the box, and that was the tactic, and 30 crosses or something. Instead, we're not relying on just the pure mathematics of just throwing 30 crosses in and hopefully you get enough XG for a goal, which is what Arteta was implying back then, rather than wanting to play good-looking football. And now I think we're playing attractive football and we have lots of options. And kind of the thing here I want to say is he's saying that essentially Tierney's sitting much further back and he's sitting deeper now because Cedric is the one bombing up and down that right-hand side. So we need Tierney to be more solid. So maybe that's also part of why that left wing isn't looking as appealing. I know Martinelli did obviously score, but he's not necessarily like being scoring in the same vein as, say, a Saka.
Yeah.
So I think definitely I'd be looking at Saka, Odegaard, and Lacazette as my three. One thing I do think is interesting, and he's not an FPL option, so we won't go into it for too long, is I think Granit Xhaka has been reinvented slightly as a kind of an 8 left centre mid role as well. So he's been, when we were talking about Gundogan earlier, and he's kind of 2-8s, I think there's no surprise essentially that Thomas Partey is like, he was our player of the month. I'd say arguably he's been one of the best, if not the best central midfielder in the Premier League in 2022. I don't think that's a bold claim to go that far. You mentioned that we have 25 out of 30 points, so tied with City in the last 10 matches for kind of the most formed teams in Europe. So, from my perspective, like, I look at all of that and I just think, well, Partey has essentially come in. He wasn't supposed to be that lone six or a pivot by himself. He's become that. He started playing at the level he should since the turn of the year. And then Xhaka's also playing this new kind of free roaming 8 role, which is helping bring more into the game. And, I'm surprised we've looked solid despite Tomiyasu out. Now, obviously, there's a long way to go till then, and top 4 race looks very competitive. But overall, I think we have some of the best fixtures coming up. We have a couple of tough away games against Spurs and Chelsea, I believe, that need to be rescheduled. But apart from that, most of our games are home. So stuff like Leicester and Liverpool, where they're tougher games, they're at the Emirates, which has been a stronghold. So I'm very confident of going there, watching the fans raise the team. And I think overall, like, I can't imagine going into this game without 3 Arsenal assets. So it's like, that would be like the first players I'd get. And because the fixtures aren't great, I can't imagine why you'd ever go and get, like, say, White or Tierney in this scenario. I'm stuck with White. I'm just going to have to ride it through, but I will be pivoting at some point to kind of double attack and just keep Ramsdale properly for me. But that's kind of Arsenal. And I would say, just final thought is, I do think if there is a clean sheet to come, it will be against Leicester. Obviously, with Vardy ruled out as well, that makes me far more confident. Because Ramsdale gave another interview, as you know, I'm an interview man, and he said the toughest striker he's ever played against is, without a doubt, Jamie Vardy. And this was days before Vardy's injury. And he was like, I've played Vardy 5 times and he scored against me 4 times or something. And I was like, fantastic. And you're playing him next week. Why are you giving this interview, Aaron? So thank God for that. But I think that Arsenal's pretty straightforward in that sense. And should we go to Tottenham then? Because I know that obviously they're a team that you would think that you were the gooner of the pod, because you're almost just as anti-Tottenham as I would be, maybe more. I say that based on kind of the fact that I've seen your kind of Gameweek 29 plans roughly, and there doesn't seem to be much lily white in there in the jerseys.
Well, so Tottenham are a funny bunch, and there's a reason why why I never liked them very much. I mean, let's go to so they smashed Everton, right? Son, that first goal, Son's goal, Pickford's just terrible, right? The people are lauding, Kulusevski. He's so creative. Oh my God, he's transformed the team. I don't know about that. I think people have to hit pause on, I think people have to hit pause on the Kulusevski love. Kane's goal, I think for the second, came off a Kulusevski like really awful touch in midfield where it bounced off his thigh, went too far away from him. He has no control, but they pick it up somehow and it ends up in a Kane goal where honestly it wasn't a very good shot either. He's like leaning really far over. Like come on, you should save that shot. Reguilon comes on at halftime despite Sessegnon looking good. I was confused about that. Reguilon's cross, Reguilon's goal came from it was a pretty poor Kulusevski cross. Kulusevski crosses across the box, and this is like when I did my scouting report on him. This is one thing I said is like when he hits the ball, he hits it really flat. He leans, and it's always with the inside of his foot, and it always goes further inside than he tends for it to go. But I mean, let's be honest, like Everton were just so incredibly bad. Like their defense was just so putrid that they could take advantage of it. And that ball goes from Kulusevski over to Reguilon. I think it's quite fortunately because of the level of opposition they were playing. So here's what I say. What my conclusions are about Spurs is, and I've brought I brought another Spurs player in, but I'm not bringing Kulusevski in. I refuse. So, well, maybe not. The movement is much better on the team, and Kulusevski is not great. He's been a little bit lucky, but he's been in good positions to be lucky. So I have to grant him that. But that I have to say, in my opinion, that is thanks to Antonio Conte. He knows how to coach him. He coming from Juventus, he's directed him well, and Kulusevski's been in some great positions, and he's incredible value. I think he's at 6.1 now. Still
6.1,
amazing value for
he's
a player
4.7 million cheaper than Son, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
so
a big difference.
It's a huge difference, and he's getting similar production. And if the movement remains the same, with the same efficiency, then I think Kulusevski could still do well. But I'm not jumping on the Kulusevski's a really great creative player bandwagon myself.
Well, I got him on the wild card, but I essentially benched him, knowing that he would be part of my team this week in Gameweek 29 and part of kind of helping me towards my bench boost. I am happy he got the points, I guess. 10 points on the bench, like lost 7 on someone like Rafinha or Broho, who I played instead. But I was never going to really bench the double game weeker for him. My only worry was that with Moura kind of potentially coming in and taking that spot, but my thought was that, Conte went and got this guy and it's his man and it's one of his first signings for the club. And I thought, really like this is his place to lose. And what I love about him as an FPL asset specifically then, so because you've obviously talked more about him as a footballer, is that he's so selfish and it reminds me of Diego Jota a bit. So I really want a kind of asset that they're just going to essentially, like whenever they're there and they've got the opportunity to go for it, they're not going to actually try to help the team. Like they're going to try to help the team by individually getting the goal. They don't really care for they're not a Mesut Ozil type who takes perhaps more satisfaction in creating the opportunity. So for me, at 6 million, like that just seems insane value. I had Son when I wildcarded. I moved to Kane. With the lack of forwards, as you say, I thought Kane was fantastic. He's doing great. He's really starting to play like his kind of previous season's levels. He's definitely kind of come back stronger. So I'm very happy with Kane as an option. He's obviously a captain option. We'll discuss him in the captaincy metric section. But besides
for the record, I think he is a good FPL asset. I think he'll continue to produce. I don't like him so much from a technique perspective as a footballer. And granted, he is young, although he's still at least a year older than Saka.
Yeah, I think, but I realized the hard way that I think Saka, like we just expect him to like perform every game now, and the fact that when he does, we don't make a big deal about it anymore is actually testament to him. I'm really shocked at how good he is because even Smith Rowe is 1 year older than Saka. So really, Saka is, I think he is currently like the leading teenager in Europe for under 21s with goals and assists for contributions. He's got 13, I believe, and I think Smith Rowe is second up there with him with like 11, and Phil Foden is third, and then I think it's actually Martinelli again who shows up in fourth. So lovely to see 3 of the Arsenal youth who are playing week in, week out in the top 5 best young forwards in the entire leagues of Europe. So
you always have the best Arsenal stats just ready to go. And like, and by the way, this is another good Arsenal stat. Who
would have thought? No, but I think for me, the other thing I like about Kulu, just something I will say, is when I was looking at him on the wildcard, again, as I say, the fear was the benching, and then I thought he's Conte's man. He's selfish. I love that he's selfish. But I thought to myself, people are questioning to me like, is he a rotation risk? And I thought, is Son not an equal rotation risk to Kulusevski then? Because from what I've been watching last few games, like Son's obviously had some returns, but I don't think he's looked great. And actually, like one of the goals he got right at the end of the previous game, not this one, but the one before, it was when I think Kulusevski got subbed off. So it was essentially like when that space that he was selfishly taking for himself finally became open for Son to even get into the opportunity. Personally, I would have liked Son and Kane, but it didn't give me the balance I needed for the bench boost and for the team I want going forwards. And I thought Kane overall was the pick I want because there's so many midfielders I want, but there's not that many forwards. And Kane I would probably captain in a weird manner, whereas Son you would probably want to captain, but I think he's got as many rotation question marks with his current form as Kulusevski would do, and therefore for nearly 5 million less. It just seems like I think they've mispriced him. Essentially, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if Kulusevski is going to be nailed in this way, I think they priced him because of the fear of rotation with Lucas Moura.
Yeah.
But I think Kulusevski. There's more of a fear of rotation with Kulusevski than with Son for sure, because Son brings you things that Kulusevski just can't bring, right? And then that goal at the end, that assist from Kane, from deep, Son can always pull that out. Always get behind a defender, and his fitness is incredible. So I don't think Son. I think Son is definitely a fixture. Kulusevski seems to be a fixture as well, though. There may be no risk of rotation there, and Lucas Moura is just a backup. So I think time will tell on that front, and time will tell if Kulusevski gets found out. I'll be curious to see if a solid defensive midfielder can make him go more horizontal than vertical and stop those shots. We'll see.
So speaking of Conte and kind of the praise to his system, obviously we know that wing backs are a vital cog in many of the things he does, especially back when he came and kind of took Chelsea to that title as well. He won a Premier League with Victor Moses playing wing back. And my kind of fun fact for the day is that Victor Moses actually went to my high school, and he was a few years younger. And I remember he was a Palace boy, and Palace kind of covered his fees to come to the school, and he went on and went to loan to multiple clubs in the Prem. Years and years he played for different Prem clubs on loan, and out of nowhere he just came back to Chelsea and won a title with them, and was a core fixture in that team. So similarly, what I would have loved to talk about today is Sessegnon and how he kind of came into Reguilón's space. But now we've heard the injury news that he's potentially out for kind of up to 4 weeks. And so I think the next question now will kind of come down to Spurs defense, because really, I think Kane is a must-target potential captain for this week. He does now have the fixture of 30. He has lovely fixtures from 31 to 33, where he's very likely to double in. So it's like Spurs and Arsenal, both in that regard, are great options. I think I've got triple from both teams. That's 6 of my team for the next 2 fixtures. But for others who aren't quite there yet, I think I would still be targeting the Spurs attacker. So let's say you don't have Kane, he'd be priority 1. Then I think for me, it's Kulusevski is the second, just because of that saving, what I can do with that elsewhere. Son, he's a fantastic player. I'm not questioning that, but just the price saving for me is too incredible to pass up. And then finally, that leaves, do you target the third Spurs defender? Do you actually go for the defense? Because I have Davies. I'm not going to lie. I think people are now actually thinking between Doherty and obviously Reguilón with the Sessegnon news. So I think what we should look at is potentially Reguilón versus Doherty, and whether you have any thoughts on that. I'm stuck with Ben Davies. I couldn't get Doherty either way, because then I wouldn't have enough money in the bank for my upgrade for Gameweek 29's bench boost. So, you can't have them all. I wanted Coutinho over Ramsey. I wanted Jimenez over Adams. So, I spent my money. I splurged my cash. I had to make compromises somewhere. So hopefully Ben Davies outscores all the other Spurs defenders. You heard it here first. Pick Ben Davies, sinking that ship with me. But real talk, I think the wing backs is who I'd go for then, just speaking of Conte and his system. And I think I'll wait to see who you think. But for me, like Doherty at his price, I'm going him over Reguilón all day. I've seen what he's capable of previously. Obviously, it was a very different team for Wolves back then. But for me, he's what we call FPL pedigree. And I think you've got to be careful that you got to decide, are you picking them based on previous FPL pedigree, like a Coutinho or a Doherty, or is it a nostalgia pick? You got to know when is the time to determine, is this nostalgia,
how do you do that? So what's the difference?
So I would argue that Coutinho wasn't nostalgia, hence the biggest green arrow of my season. And similarly, I would say that Doherty isn't nostalgia. Obviously, people have now got their eyes on him. I'm very upset that they've got their eyes on him. I was hoping Spurs wouldn't have done much in that game, so people would fly to him. But for me, I think it has to be Doherty over Reguilón, just because of the price saving as well. I've become more frugal these days in my later FPL seasons. I've done it too many times, spend lots on the player, play them this 1 week, and then many weeks I don't need them. They're on my bench, and they're way more expensive than they needed to be. Also, I just think when I watched Doherty, I think he was even unfortunate not to get more. There was a point at which someone looked up in the box to pass it to someone, and he was the player there waiting. So, I love that kind of mentality. It's a bit like a mini Alonso, right? Reguilón, on the other hand, I've seen a few games where let's just say that he's made many crosses, or attempted crosses is the right word, and he's not really got anywhere. He's a great option if you want to take a punt and double up. I don't hate that move. If you want Kane, Doherty, and Reguilon, I think that's sexy. So you could dodge Kulusevski and get that double defense. But for me, it's the kind of the Kane, Kulusevski, and Doherty is the ones I'd be going for.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think they don't. I mean, so far the Spurs only have one wing back who's been able to cross this season, and that's Doherty recently. Everyone else has just been a disaster. Emerson Royal and Reguilon on the left. I mean, Reguilon has been benched this season, right? Just because he hasn't played well. Doherty's taking advantage of his opportunity, but I don't think he comes without risk. You know, I think there's definitely risk there because he's not a great player. I think at the beginning of the season, we were all making fun of anybody talking about Doherty, and he hasn't all of a sudden become this great player. So I think right now he's a decent, maybe ride that upside. You know, get in there and ride that upside. Could see some rank gains, but it's probably a pick that not a long-term pick.
No, I tend to agree, and I think Nick's in the chat. He's saying he won't play Everton every week, and I think that's very true. We're just speaking of Everton. Obviously, Spurs' history against them, Kane's own history against them is incredible. But generally speaking, I question in what universe does Frank Lampard have any kind of, I guess what's the word, like credentials? I was going to say credibility. Maybe it's both credibility and credentials. In what world does he have either credibility or credentials to be kind of there and doing that job? I think that's what happens when you've had a fantastic playing career, and no doubt about that, and his incredible records there. But as a manager, I'm not convinced. And obviously they're in massive trouble. They're made massive losses over the last 3 to 5 years as a club, and the transfer saga has been outrageously badly planned out. And there's talks of them being docked points as like the first ever Prem club to like do so because of like not hitting the maximum loss per year over a 3-year stretch. I think they've lost like 250 mil in losses in like 3 years, and you're not meant to lose like over 180 million or something. So, you know, also Usmanov, who was a part owner of Arsenal, and thank God he moved over to Everton. He's also now had his assets frozen just like Abramovich. So, you know, like I look at all this and I think, damn, Everton, like, you know, everything you've done is like how not to spend money. Like if Newcastle want to look at a club and look at how you shouldn't spend 5 years in funds, watch Everton and don't do what they did.
Here's a question from Khaled Bedaki. Doherty and Allison or Robertson and Lloris?
See, I don't like Allison's price point at all. Like I think at that price, I would just get Van Dijk. He's perfectly capable of a couple bullet headers or generating bonus. It is one of the best defenses in the league, obviously. And with that in mind, though, obviously he's got Robertson and Lloris there, and I assume you like who is your second goalkeeper, because you know, like I'd love to kind of figure out when else would you play Lloris apart from Gameweek 29 and Gameweek 30. Like if you already have a Gameweek 30 goalkeeper, for instance, like a Ramsdale or a Sarr, then I don't think I'd be going down that route. I don't know if like who
say on a free hit.
Tell us in the chat. Yeah, on a free hit this week. That is a very good question. For me, I'd go for Edouard Mendy, to be honest. Chelsea against Newcastle, I think I would go there.
Not a doubler, really.
No, I don't really like them. I've got Ramsdale, I've got Dubravka. I'm bench boosting with 4 of their fixtures, and you know, if I get 2 points times 4 and get 8 points, and don't lose points for goals conceded from the pair of them, I'd consider that 8 points from them a success. And so, you know, like I'm not hot on the kind of Lloris and Allison just because of the double, and especially because Allison's going to ride your bench in 30. He is on free hit.
And if it is free hit, and just kind of relating this to the FDR here in front of us for the podcast listeners, we have the Spurs away to Man United with an FDR defensive FDR of -1.4, so really not very good. And then we have in the double away to Brighton 1.0, which is fine. But what I don't like about Spurs, especially defensively, is 2 away matches. It just
that makes a big deal to me. Yeah,
it doesn't scream defensive anything. So I would look for a different combination, I guess. I'm not happy with either of those combinations.
Yeah, I think for me, like the Spurs defense, the only part of it I like is the attacking upside of the wing backs.
Right.
And then in that scenario, you're kind of then losing out on potentially Robertson's potential. So it might be better to see like the full team. It's hard to isolate two positions without knowing the rest of the 15. It might be that those two are the final locks, because then you have a super crazy team thereafter. But do tweet us a picture of the actual squad. The free hit draft.
He says he is on free hit, and on free
Yeah.
hit I would go for upside and go for not get any of those goalkeepers. Go for the attacking option, the attacking defenders, like you said there, Nima.
Yeah, like I would be happy in your situation to get like even Pickford. I actually way prefer him as a free hit goalkeeper. 2 home games. Wolves don't really create much. Newcastle's the other one. Happy days. Like you get 1 clean sheet and some save points there. That's a double-digit haul. And who the hell else in the world has Pickford, right? Like that is ultimate differential punt chasing.
That's
if you want to, like, that's who I'd be going for personally on free hit.
Don't watch any of those matches, but you can.
Don't watch them.
Don't
like
watch
just
them.
check the score off it. It's way too much stress. Yeah, I think for me, like he's only 4.9 million or something, or 4.8 million. So that will maybe even let you have Robertson and Doherty in the team. But yeah, let us know how that's going on. So I think we talked about Spurs quite a bit. The other team was Liverpool. I think they're a very important topic as well for this game week to just look at, and then we'll answer Harry's question about how many players are enough who have doubles this week. I think obviously like some people have quite a lot of them, and others are wondering whether they need to kind of wildcard or free hit to get more. It's similar to me last week, Gabriel. So in game week 28, I had 3 doublers, and one of them was Brandon Williams. And then like on the morning of like the day before the deadline, I wake up and I've got no signal. I've been in Scotland for like a week, no phone signal. I finally arrive at the city centre and I just see a yellow flag on Brandon Williams. And I'm like, this is it. I can't take this shit anymore. I was like, even with my -4, I'm going to have like 4 or 5 double game weekers. Then next week, I might only have 5 or 6 in 29. And then I've only got like 6 players in game week 30. I was like, that's it. Like I was adamant I'd save my wildcard till game week 31 or 34. But at that point, I just had to make the decision of there are just so many points on offer that I'm not going to get if I don't go now. Like I just have to go for it now, and we'll figure out my problems later. I'll take hits later. There's no point kind of just persisting as I was. And I'm still glad I didn't wildcard in 26, obviously with the Salah triple captain that made my game week. So I'm very happy with that. But I think overall, the Chelsea defensive assets and the Coutinho and the Kane move, like the way I was just going to just completely move out my team. I think many people, they could wildcard now into 29 if they have, say, 2 free hits, and they could load up on teams that don't necessarily have a fixture in 30 as well. So I think that's an option there to think about. That's something I do really like. Carl is convinced about Pickford. If Pickford does get 10 plus points, I'm definitely going to take credit for that one. But and if he gets minus points, I might skip a few episodes till you forgive me.
If he gets minus, you picked a bad goalkeeper, so you get what you deserve.
Well, I heard from Everton fans that they said they'd have been relegated without him. So they say that we're all laughing at Pickford, but actually he's been like their best player of the season. So God knows where they'd be if he'd not been performing as well as they say he has. And I say as well as they say he has because I never want to speak about any other club because it's just my opinion. Like I talk about Arsenal all day long, but if I'm insulting another club, I'd like to say words their own fans use so that I can't be beaten with that stick later for a bad take. I just blame their own fan base thereafter.
But yeah, Everton's matchups, to be fair, there's 0.8 against Wolves and 1.5 against Newcastle. Really not bad defensively there. There are a couple that are interesting, and I think it was Blue Nicks that mentioned this in the chat. Check out Brentford's defensive matchup. 3.4, best in
that's crazy.
Best defensive matchup in 29.
Of a single match, I suppose. Like it's when you double up like some of the Liverpool and the other teams. Like
even if you say you add the double up, right? I'm not sure if it works that way, but even if you add it, it's still 3.4 is still the best, I think. Yeah, it's still the best of the week. Brentford defense. So Mariner might take some shtick if Burnley score, but somebody mentioned in the chat that a lot of people were piling up on Burnley attack. Hopefully they've course corrected there.
Speaking of Brentford, just on that note, it's incredible that if you think about earlier to the season, the reverse of these fixtures that we're seeing for Brentford, they were the ones where everyone doubled up on Tony and Mbeumo and got nothing. But now, our friend of the show, obviously, who came on in the preseason or a few weeks back, FPL Salah Abdul, he had Tony, and not only did he have him still, but he started him for a 17-point hat trick. he didn't have Chelsea defense, so he was just treading water, as he says. Like, thank God something saved him. He's having an incredible season up there with Mariner. But I was like, wow, like it's funny how the tables have turned because I have Broher. He's not going to play in game week 30, and I'm thinking to myself, ooh, that could be interesting. I only have 9 players in game week 30. Maybe a cheeky Broher to Tony move is there. Maybe it's ready. Like, just make that move, and maybe he'll go crazy in game week 30. I think he plays Leicester. Are Leicester that good? And then we'll come to this topic later. But for me, I think if you have like anywhere from 7 to 9 players for game week 30, that's like probably fine to not free hit. Even like 6 players could be enough, depending on which 6. I would be going top heavy and trying to get like a full attacking 7. Even if you end up with 0 goalkeepers or defenders, because for me, like, if you're going to take hits to buy those defenders from Villa against Arsenal, or buy Wolves as well against Leeds, but then you've got Rafinha, you've got the Arsenal attackers. It's like whatever defender you buy, you've probably got the alternative attacker, and on top of it, you're taking a hit for it. I'd rather just get them for free the following week and get that player next time, because players now, so for Brentford specifically, I think that they're quite interesting. Someone actually said a few game weeks ago, why aren't we all talking about Brentford's great run? Like, why don't we buy their players? I know they don't have doubles, but they have fixture in game week 30. They have good fixtures before game week 30. Why aren't we buying Brentford players? I think we're all just scarred from that earlier stretch then, isn't it, really?
I think that and the fact that there are no doubles. I mean, people are selling City players because they're not doubling. Obviously, they're not going to have Brentford players.
Cancelo's gone, Foden's gone, yeah.
So I think everybody at this point in the season is probably looking for some upside and looking to ride the wave of the double fixtures as much as possible, and even to the extent of just forgetting the blanks. Like, a lot of people in 30 are saying, "Look, I'm going to field 6, and so be it," and moving on to the next double. So
I think that's why Arsenal and Spurs that we spoke about, they are the key to getting through game week 30, because if you've got 6 of them, that's already kind of 6 players in game week 30.
How many doublers do you have for 29, Nima?
So I have 9 of them at the moment, and when I sell James to Van Dijk, which I'll probably do, I'll have 10. So I'm looking to have 10 doublers and bench boosts with 5 single game week players. But my actual bench that I'm bench boosting would be a Dubravka. So obviously you've got Newcastle versus Chelsea and Everton away. Nothing special, but I would take 4 appearance points, maybe 5 if he gets saved. 1 fluke clean sheet against Everton, and I'm laughing, right? So again, like, I take Dubravka. Coutinho I have against West Ham away, so bench boosting him. The other one is Jimenez away to Everton. Hopefully Everton continue in the form they have. And then finally, I have obviously Davies, as I mentioned, with his 2 fixtures for Spurs against United and Brighton. So for me, I'm like, I've got 2 doublers on the bench in Dubravka and Davies. I'm really bench boosting them for their appearance points, and I'm not expecting much more. And then Jimenez and Coutinho, they're players that other people will have in their 11 for game week 29. So, like, I'm not going to bench them. And in my starting 11, I have the likes of Broher and Rafinha. They're probably the only 2 players I could bench for Jimenez or Coutinho. So either way, 2 of those 4 would be benched. And when else am I going to have 2 playing goalkeepers with 4 fixtures between them? So I'm like, this is it. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to get this goddamn chip out the way. Like, I don't want it for the rest of the season. I want to build strong 11s going forwards. Yeah.
So is the double goalkeeper with the double, is that your trigger?
No, it's more just Coutinho in his current form, and that interview I said, and being at his fittest, but also Jimenez. He's kind of had the 2 games off the bench, like 9 minutes and I think it was 30 minutes. And then on top of that, now he's finally started. He's got the goal. I'm like, okay, Everton look really bad. He plays Leeds in game week 30. This looks okay. Like, this is a nice time. And again, like, Rafinha's got Norwich, Broher's got Watford. I look at all these fixtures for my like cheap enablers around my team, and I think, like, game week 36 will be the biggest double of the season. And there will be 10 to 12 teams doubling. So you can probably get to it with free transfers. Like, you don't have to wildcard in game week 30 to prepare for 36. So you could even wildcard now. You could wildcard in 31. You could use free transfers, whatever. But I'm actually looking at maybe free hitting in that week and getting 11 doublers then. So that's why kind of my strategy was, if I don't bench boost now, I'll have to bench boost in 36. And well, actually, like, I think I prefer the free hit. Then I've only got 1, and I'll try to navigate the rest of the season till then. But I think, for this week, I would say kind of 7 doublers is probably enough. Like, forget bench boost, just generally, if you had 6 or 7 doublers this week, so, if you had, say, 4 to 6 Arsenal and Spurs players and 2 to 3 Liverpool players, they're the ones I'd be targeting. Without a free hit of some kind or a pre-wildcard that's set up for this week, I would not be going into the other double teams. Like, I would not be going for Everton. I would not be going for Newcastle. Like, Newcastle didn't have a fixture, right? So in 30. So it's difficult. There's only 3 teams I can imagine you're buying from unless you're going to free hit in 30.
Yeah, I have 9 double game week players currently, and on my bench I have Dubravka as well, and I have Rudiger and Thiago Silva against Newcastle, and then Jacob Ramsey. I'm not free hitting. I'm going to save it until 36. I could, I think, with those players.
You mean bench boost, right?
Oh yeah, sorry, bench boost.
Okay.
I'm in bench boost. So, so it'll be interesting to see how that strategy pays off. Like the bench boost this week and the free hit in 36, and some people are free hitting this week and they'll bench boost in 36, and so yeah, that'll be interesting as far as strategies
crazy,
go.
I think I might still free hit 33. So one thing I will say is 33 looks the more difficult to navigate because there might be like a handful of blanks and then also some doubles, and then like the teams that blank in 30, they can't potentially be rescheduled to 33 if they're in the semi-final of the FA Cup. So then they're going to actually have to have their game week 30 fixture in 36. City could have a great double in 36, so that would be nice for free hit. But really, if 33 ends up being harder to navigate, I think a free hit 33 is quite nice. And then I know a lot of people who are going to free hit 33, wildcard 34, bench boost 36. So that is also another very viable route. I think that's my favorite part of the season. Like, we're actually starting to see not just variance, obviously, in the points this game week, but variance in the routes everyone's going in. Even similar wildcard teams from last week, they're not going to necessarily all follow bench boost this week. Because I've seen teams that, and I think that's the key thing, teams that have, say, Ramsey over Coutinho like I do, or they have like an Adams instead of Jimenez, they're now actually potentially thinking of holding off their bench boost or taking a -8 to activate it. So that's why I'm thinking maybe it is in my best interest to just get in VVD, get the 10th doubler, just bench boost and go, because otherwise I'm definitely going to be benching some points somewhere, and I'm sure I'll get it wrong. Like someone there I'm going to get it wrong. Like,
why VVD over Matip?
I just want him because then I'm going to sell him the following week anyway. So I'm going to go for the most expensive asset I can afford. For me, it's just like I have that money now. I think I have 0.2 million buffer. And because I can't get to Robbo, I really fancy VVD. Just speaking of the matchups, bringing it back to the metrics. So for me, obviously, I'd like to think Arsenal can keep a clean sheet against them like they did with 10 men. But that's maybe wishful thinking with Mane and Salah back and Diaz now joined. But at least against Brighton, I think that's a very good clean sheet shot there for VVD. And I think it's the kind of game where he's going to kind of pass the ball a lot and accumulate bonus from those kind of actions in his baseline. And I'm also very confident of a goal for him. I don't know I think it was Webster or one of their kind of key centre-backs for Brighton was out last week. And I think that's actually quite important there. And I think VVD is going to bully their centre-backs. And I'm kind of looking for a clean sheet and goal against Brighton, if I'm honest with you. And I would kill for a 0-0 in that Arsenal-Liverpool game because I would have 4 defensive assets in that match. I would have Ramsdale, White, Van Dijk, and Trent. So like a 0-0 there. Oh my God, you can't imagine what I would do.
He'll be flying.
I might be like that episode. It will be, the house will be burning in the background. My God. But no, I think for me, it's that whole Coutinho thing. And it's not, and the Matip situation, I think if I was going to keep him all season, he's someone I'd very much consider. Actually, a lot of the algos out there, they really like him as well, I've noticed. So like some of the algos are really putting him up there for like projected scores for the following final stretch of 8 or 9 games for the end of the season. But yeah, no, I really do like Matip, but I think as a purchase to hold, and for me, like I'm not going to hold VVD through the blank in 30. I'll probably sell him for like a Leicester defender. So I'm hoping like James Justin's back or Fofana. You know, Amity is there. I don't really want him, but so there is some options. But yeah, I think that's really it for me. It's as simple as just the money's there. I back him in this game, and I know that Matip is very nailed. He's one of their best players for a couple of seasons now defensively, but really like I'm just kind of thinking to myself, like, VVD's the best defender in the Premier League, in my opinion. And I just can't look past that. It's like, surely, like, with the title chase fully being on now, there is no way VVD could be benched. Like, I'm thinking at all. Like, Matip probably can't be too, but just that extra certainty, like knowing that I'm not going to use that money for any other moves and I'm then going to get the money back.
And VVD has 2-headed goals in the last 6. Matip doesn't have any. VVD has a couple more chances from headers in the last 6 as well. So I get it. Like, I think to your point, it's if you're going to keep him long term, I think Matip is definitely the guy to get. But if you're looking for upside, somebody that's not going to be in your team for a while and you can afford him, then you might as well go to VVD, right?
This is to protect me against essentially all the people who buy Doherty, Regulion, and the other defender that I'm sure they're all going to buy, who I've lost who it was now. But who was it? It was the 2 Spurs boys and Robertson. Yeah, obviously.
Robertson.
I'm trying to get rid of him in my memory because I'm just 0.3 million short of him. He would be my preferred pick. Just on that note, I think Robbo, obviously we're talking about James to Robbo being a no-brainer. We've said Trent and Salah are in every team. So for that third Liverpool spot, I'm talking about VVD. You have Matip. I think there is worthy conversation to be had about Diaz and Jota, the pair of them, but also about Robbo. There was talks about, is Tsimikas waiting and all this stuff. I think personally, the game that Tsimikas would maybe play, if there was any, would actually be after the international break, game week 31. I think there's midweek UCL fixtures in the post weeks of 31 and 32 as well. So I think for that very same reason, that's why I'd be selling James, because even if he's only out for one fixture in 29, blanks in 30, and supposedly he's back by 31, are they going to really give him more than cameos in game week 31 and 32 with UCL either side of those 2 weeks? I don't think so. So I think James, definite sell. Robbo, if you can get there instantly, why not? On top of that, Robbo can then be your placeholder for Cancelo if you've already sold him.
Right.
So it's like, Robbo can get to Cancelo very easily, even at the increased price points. So, yeah, I think Robbo is the guy, but just I can't get to him, and therefore VVD or Matip are the ones we're talking about. But what do you think about Diaz then? So like a double attack over, so just getting Trent, Salah, and Diaz. And do we think Diaz is nailed?
He's a baller, that's for sure. I mean, he's a dog out there, and he's amazing to watch. I think he's an incredible addition to the team. I don't know that he's nailed though. I mean, you could see him rotating with Jota. Is it worth the risk when you have so many other kind of reliable picks from one of the best teams in the league? I don't think you risk that spot. I think the Liverpool spots are the best teams in the league. You get the players that are that will play. They all have upside. So I don't think you need to be chasing that kind of differential from a Liverpool player. Although I really like that player.
Yeah, no, I do like him. He's someone that I think we will keep an eye on him. Maybe after the blank, if I think that it's looking like he's definitely the guy. Because right now it feels like he's nailed that spot for himself. And I was very shocked to see that lineup with Salah, Mane, and Diaz, with Mane playing through the middle. It was not something I expected. I guess the next thought is, actually, we'll wait for Captaincy Metric to talk about that. I won't talk about Salah, Trent, and also Kane yet. I think there's a lot of good stuff to come from all of them. Should we have a quick final look at the Zonals, just going 29 and beyond? So it's going to be 29 to 32. I think we've talked about the key teams in 29 being Arsenal, Spurs, Liverpool. Everton have a juicy double if you're on a free hit, I think, personally. Do you bench boost? Do you not? But I think overall, outside of those teams, there's no one really I'd be targeting 29. But from a zonal point of view, so we're kind of talking about Everton. I'm just here on the left. They've got a 3 this week. And then in the second game, I think they've got a 2.5. Is that how you read it? Wolves and Newcastle?
Yes.
On the left-hand side? Okay, so I think from that perspective, is Richarlison someone who you would consider? Because that is someone that people I've seen talking about as like a really low differential punt to get for this game week.
I've heard some compelling arguments for Richarlison, but I don't know how you could go for an Everton attacker, even with those fixtures. I think, haven't we learned this lesson that players on bad teams, even in a double game week, they're just not good, right?
the
one yellow
Watford
card
and
and they're sitting on
Burnley
3.
situation.
Exactly. We're looking at Watford. We're looking at Burnley. Like how many times is it going to
Leeds,
take this season?
Southampton.
How many times are we going to learn? Does it take to learn this lesson, right? So I just don't get Everton players if you want to be happy.
But on a
I'm not
free
getting
hit. But I guess even on a free hit, 9 of your
Really?
11's probably already gone with Liverpool, Spurs, and Arsenal. So it's kind of like you then have 2 spots.
Exactly.
And you've got players like Rafinha against Norwich. You've got, Coutinho, West Ham. You've got Broha, Watford. You've got, Chelsea defenders against Newcastle.
You have Tony against Burnley.
Yeah. You even have Tony against Burnley, who then also has a fixture the following week if you're not free hitting against Leicester. So, no, fair enough. I'm just trying to see if I can convince anyone out there in the audience to tell us if you are buying an Everton player. Please let us know. The one I've heard is people going for Gordon. I think he's the only one that deserves any kind of shout out. He is so relatively cheap, and like he can be an enabler. They're likely to have 2 free double game weeks from 31 onwards. I think Everton are one of 3 teams that are going to have lots of fixtures to come after the international break. So me personally, like I'm going to be looking to move my Wolves players, my Leeds players, my Villa players, all of them out after game week 31. And the teams I'll be targeting are the likes of Leicester, Everton, and Burnley, because again, they might have another double-double. But that's just going to be like a Weghorst or Cornet radio. That's about it. It won't be going balls deep, but we'll talk about balls a bit later too. I think that's the zonals really. We can probably move on from here. Let's see. So we have obviously the Rumi pick of the week. I think this is a great. We said we'd talk about him later in the show, so we did skip over him in the Arsenal section. So I'm sure I'll let you take over.
Okay, so I'm sure you're very happy about this one, Nima. The Rumi pick this week. Whoops, there's my dog. Hey, Kachu. All right, he gets on the show. So the quote is, and this is a quote actually I posted this on Twitter a couple of weeks ago to somebody that was kind of feeling quite badly about the situation in Ukraine and the Russian invasion and aggression there. So the quote is, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." And so the Rumi pick of the week is Bukayo Saka, and I thought of him obviously because of the way he's playing, and what I see from him is he dictates the tempo of the team from a wide-ish inside forward area. Usually the tempo of the team is dictated somewhere in center mid, maybe a defender, but not a player in this area unless there are very few cases, right? It's pretty rare for this to happen, certainly for a 20-year-old. So he suffered a heartbreaking penalty miss, obviously, as a teenager in the Euros last summer. And so I believe he has allowed the light to enter that wound, and he's come back forged. Saka dictates the tempo of the team as a winger, and which is a rare ability, certainly at his age. I'd like him to shine in 2 big home matches as Arsenal look to secure a top 4 spot.
No, I love that. And I think just going back to kind of quotes from the manager. So, I saw Arteta's presser afterwards. I watched the whole thing, and they asked him, do you think that what happened with England and the penalties, like, do you think that changed him? Do you think that's part of what we're seeing this season from him? I think there's no doubt that he was having world-class moments even before the Euros, and hence getting into the team. And people thought he wouldn't make the final 25-man squad when he was in the 32-man provisional squad, and he made it. And then they thought he'd be a bench warmer for Sancho, and it was the other way around. So, he's definitely shown that. I think he was essentially what I'm getting at. He was world class anyway in my eyes beforehand, or had the potential. But that moment, I think what Arteta said was that it really changed him. And what changed was that he realized how much people loved him, and he was overwhelmed by the unconditional support he got. And he said, like Arteta said, very few players will get to experience any moment like this in their career, let alone at that age. And then to also have that kind of satisfaction of knowing that, your teammates, your countrymen, your fans, your own club, when you came back, everyone's there to support you, and everybody loves you, and they love you so much no matter what happened. And I think that made him kind of realize that, there's more, and he's got to keep going. And I think Arteta said, you can see it. Football is his entire life. It's the only thing he lives for. And, he wants to be here till the day he retires. He wants to be a one club man. So, I just can't see how at 20 years old a play, like, as I say, it's shocking. We don't even talk about some of the stuff he does week in, week out, because we just see it every week now. And that level of consistency and the decision making I see from him, I never saw it from the likes of Walcott and Iwobi and these guys when they played Ox on the wings. None of them had what he has in the final third. And as you say, it's just fascinating because it's like everyone's always looking to him. Whenever we have the ball, like, he is the key outlet. He's the runner. He's the one somehow getting on the inside forward position, getting the shots off. And if there was one criticism I had previously was on his kind of finishing, but he seems to be working on that too. So there's nothing but love for the guy. Like, it's just his hard work and attitude and ethic. And
I just love how the team responds when he penetrates. The team rushes into the space behind defenders. When he slows the ball down, you see people making good movements to give everybody lateral options to make sure the ball keeps moving. He'll drop back and he'll build it from the back, and I just see him doing kind of everything, and I see everybody responding to this 20-year-old, even though he's not even the captain, right? Lacazette is the captain, yet people respond to him like he's the leader. And
they're all older than him, right? Like, you've got the likes of Tierney, like, he's obviously way more experienced. He was captain before in Scotland. He's won big trophies there. You've got Odegaard, captain of his national team, just turned 23 himself. But like, it's just crazy. And you see Martinelli constantly telling the press that, like, we're going to be one of the best teams in the world. We're going to be one of the best young teams in the world. We're super young. We've got ages to play together. And I think the other thing Arteta said is that you can see it more now. They all know who's going to do what. And if someone drops their shoulder, they know what he's going to do next. And I think the benefit of them having now had this season to play together is it's very rare that Arsenal have had like a kind of an 11 that you could easily name week in, week out. So to have that core and to have them all playing, I'm glad. Also, I did like that Pepe came on and scored the winner against Wolves off the bench, because that also then keeps that pressure on Saka. And although, Saka could play left wing to allow Pepe on the right, or Pepe could play striker if Laka was bench one game. Personally for me, ideally, like, Saka is the star man, as they say. And, he's a very humble boy. And I can't see him kind of getting distracted by the fame and doing what some other kind of very highly talented players, cough, e.g. Balotelli, have done in their lives, where, they could have been anything, and they kind of just didn't take it up from there with the work ethic. So I think just a final thought, Harry asked, will he leave? I can't imagine he'd leave now. There is already talks that the most important business of this summer will be his contract extension with Saliba's, and I believe Martinelli again. But so, I think he's looking to stay. He is a Champions League level player. I actually think that if we weren't in the Champions League, as Mike says there, like, he could be gone like within a few years. I'd love him to stay, but I think we have to match his ambition. He can't not be playing in the Champions League. I think if Arsenal do make top four and we do buy a couple of players next year, we do get like a centre mid, we do get a striker, we do get a backup right back. For me personally, like, people are going to be surprised at what they see from Arsenal, because I don't think there's very good technical teams in Europe. I think a lot of the teams like Madrid and the other clubs that we're seeing in Europe in the Champions League, they're kind of not as technically great as they were. There's only really, for me, Liverpool and City and Chelsea. I think of them as technically great teams, and maybe Bayern. And I think if Arsenal do get into the top four with the likes of Saka, a year older by then, I like, it's going to be a bold claim. I'll call it now. You guys can clip it. The more he grows, the further he'll carry Arsenal on his back. So for me, I like, it's a bold claim, but I'm calling semi-final if Arsenal get into the top four this year, semi-final of UCL next year. I genuinely don't believe that the teams that I've been watching in the Champions League, like the Bayern I saw, City would destroy them if they played them. There are very few technically good teams, and I think we're building a very technically good, gifted team of young players, and there's more of them to come and keep growing together. He's like the star man. Like, I can't imagine him leaving personally. Like, we'd have to be really bad. Like, we'd have to be super below the expectations that he has of himself for him to leave. And I don't think we're there yet. Like, the project just began. It's a 5-year squad cycle. This is year one. They've played 20 games together, maybe. So I think there's a lot of good times to come yet. But yeah, so that's Saka. I think we'll quickly take some water and we'll just do this little clip with the strategic partnership all about FPL.com. So before we go, I'm also going to get something ready because we have a very good announcement for our callers today. We've got a 1 month offer coming, but in the meantime, let's just show the what are you waiting for?
Are you craving more FPL content? Then look no further than allaboutfpl.com. Head over there for weekly articles from some of the top content creators on the planet. So what are you waiting for? Head over to allaboutfpl.com, the website for all your FPL needs.
All right, nice one. So I think before we kind of go into it too much, I just want to we talked about this a few weeks ago. We said we were going to do a little trial with the guys over at Manscaped. So really happy we are partnering with them actually, and they've brought support for this episode of Net That Haul and the next few for the coming month. So they've given all of the hosts some of their products, so some of their lovely products we're going to be trying out. So I have my Lawnmower 4.0 here, so I'll talk to you a little bit about my very personal experience of using it. I didn't want to discuss product I'd never used. This is an ad. They have gifted us these products, and in exchange, we've been given a kind of 20% off discount and free shipping that we'll put in the YouTube video description using code NTH20. So we will talk about that. But the kind of the breaking news for me was when my package arrived, the performance kit, I kind of opened this and it was the big daily news and it was the We Save Balls. So I think, hairy balls are very gross. And essentially, I've had some very bad experiences with previous shavers. I'm not going to lie. Growing up as an Iranian, I've been very conscious about how hairy we are as a people. I'm very happy to come here and say that Manscaped brought confidence in me that, it overcomes my Iranianness and the hairiness. So really, for anyone who doesn't know who Manscaped is, because I'm laughing like you would know, but obviously some of you might be new to the channel or you might be new to men's grooming products. Rule number 1, don't use the same shaver you use for your face for your groin. So this is where Manscaped comes in. They are the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. They offer precision-engineered tools for your family jewels, Gabe. So yeah, they recently launched the Ultimate Men's Hygiene Bundle, the performance package, which we have. So, you come and join 4 million men worldwide and go and net those balls, as Marino was saying. I know, Gabe, you received the product before me, didn't you? I had to wait a whole week to
I've been using it for a little while, and here at Net That Haul, we're saving the balls. Save the balls at Net That Haul. And this is so I've been using it for a little while, and this is what's happened. I was gifted this. So
wow, now that's big moment.
This is a mug that was gifted to me that says, "You're my favorite cardio workout." So I attribute it, correlation does not imply causation, Nima, but I'm going to imply it this time because it makes me feel good. Because thanks to Manscaped, I now have a beautiful mug and I am someone's favorite cardio workout. So shave those balls.
I'm glad you read that out for the podcast listeners.
Hair is not good in any dish, in any meal.
No,
so get rid of the hair.
But I think on that note, so not only is the Lawnmower 4.0 so great because I think from my personal experience, I've always been kind of quite heavy-handed and clunky, and I got a few nicks, and that kind of then scares me about the lawn mowing down there. So I don't kind of do the manscaping enough, and then with this product, I feel like I can use it anytime, easy to travel with, and I guess it's the future of grooming. So dare I say, it's the greatest ball trimmer ever.
It's the future of relationships. Just invest in your relationship. Get it done. Net That Haul. Go to manscaped.com. The code is NTH20, NTH20, or NTH20 if you live where Nima lives.
Yeah. No, I pronounce it very differently. I think just a kind of final thought I would say. So the other product I was really impressed by, Gabe, so another personal experience is I've started going on a lot more walks, hitting up the gym, trying to work on kind of reaching a new weight target. And chafing is a real pet hate of mine. These long walks with the dog, the chafing it's just, I can't handle it anymore. So I guess what I really saw that I didn't expect to get with this case was they also have their crop preserver ball deodorant and crop reviver ball toner. So, that's going to change the way you approach your hygiene routine. Trust me when I say this, fellas, your balls will thank you. But anyway, so as I say, so that's the ad. we're glad to be working with them. It turns out the demographic in YouTube is 99% male. So shout out to the 1% of the women, the haulers out there. We've not forgotten you. You can still use the 20% off to get this as a great Valentine's Day gift, birthday gift. Easter weekend's coming up. Persian New Year on the 19th and 20th of March. You know,
it's a great gift for a Friday.
Yeah, just
get the weekend started
reason
right.
to give your man the same confidence that we've gained. But
Yes.
yeah, so as I say, for men and for women alike. But thank you for Manscaped for the partnership. We'll put the code in the YouTube video description for anyone on podcasts. And yeah, it's just manscaped.com, 20% off and free international shipping with NTH20. So I think we're ready to go into the part of the show now where we kind of look at some of the captaincy numbers. And from there, we have a couple of questions on Twitter I'm going to run through, Gabe. And I think we'll then take a few live questions and we will get out of here. So Captaincy Metric, I'll put it back up on the screen. It's currently at 79%. I can see the Salah blank is just written there because Mariner is really distraught about... He wasn't distraught about his game week and his OR dropping. He just messaged me and said, the fucking Captaincy Metric has failed again. He was not happy about this. So I can see why he's not here today. Without further ado then, do you want to take us through the metric and kind of the top 5 candidates? I would say they're the most interesting.
So here, yes, some interesting. Well, obviously Salah is top with 96, but look at, we have a Robertson and Kane coming in at second, tied for second at 93 on the Captaincy Metric, and then we have a two-way tie for third as well, or I guess that would be fourth, with Trent and Reece James. So Reece James is obviously injured; he'll be out for a little while. So we have Salah, Robertson, Kane, then Trent. And then a little ways down at 89, we have Son and Saka together. Saka kind of climbing his way up this metric. I mean, no surprises really here at the top, except for I am surprised Robertson is so high.
That scares me knowing I can't get anywhere near.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Haul percentage, 50%. I think that's probably what does it, right?
Yep.
The 92% return rate. Damn. No, Robertson's been fantastic. I think because Trent's been doing so well, they say he's 4 assists off the season with the most assists for a defender ever. So he's having an incredible year. But, you know, it's kind of meant that Robertson's gone under the radar, I think. And actually, he's been one of the best assets in the game for a while now, for at least the last 6 to 10 game weeks. I'm very gutted at those who can afford to go James straight to Robertson. I'll be honest. And what I do love, something I'll say about the captaincy metric is, I also always look for it to see how many of them I have. So even if I'm not going to captain them all, obviously seeing the likes of Saka in there, seeing the likes of Rafinha, they make me happy. It's good to know that they are so highly touted for this game week. You know, and the single fixture for Mount, he's still up there. De Bruyne is still there, as you say. Cancelo, if he's fit on Monday, I think this always reassures me as well that the double alone is not enough to be blindsided by. Like it is worth playing your single game week because as people learn. With the pain of benching Saka and Trent in double game week 28, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have that's a great point you bring up. You want as many of these players in your team as possible. I have 6 out of the top 10, and I'm really happy about that. You know, double game week players. But yeah, you know, never forget about the single ones that have proven quite useful in recent weeks.
Even
for sure.
Free hit. Definitely even on free hit. I think
even on free hit, yeah.
Matty Cash not mentioned despite his heroics. I think it'll be very difficult for a Villa player to end up on this metric for the captaincy for game week 29 without a double. It'll be very tough for him to get up here. But his points were off the charts. I'm not going to lie. My friend had him, and it was pretty much the only saving grace of his game week. Like he stayed adrift, just didn't drown because of that one player. I think 24 or 28 points in the end, something disgusting like that, Gabe. So yeah, Matty Cash, good old Matty Cash.
Yep.
Obviously with Reece out here, I think the Reece to Robbo, it just looks so obvious, doesn't it? I know it's not a move towards game week 30, but I would take it. I think the way I would look at it is that I would treat this double for Liverpool as 1 fixture in 29, 1 in 30. You're still getting the same as someone like a Wolves player who's got 1 fixture in 29 and 1 fixture in 30. So even if you didn't have a Reece James to sell, I would consider like selling your Wolves defender to get to Robertson. That would still be like, that's one of the highest upside moves for me this game week, personally.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely chase that upside. I think this season has taught us that chase that upside, get in those higher upside players and play the game week in front of you. You know, we were talking about earlier about like the best knowledge we have is the one that's right in our immediate vicinity. So so there it is. And Robertson is that high upside play and a double game week. Easy pick. Worry about game week 30 when game week 30 comes.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think I'm trying to see if there's anyone else here with. So Mane's an interesting one. I know some people who have him. I don't know how they still have him and Salah, but they somehow squeezed him into their team. Talking about our friend FPL Pig, the singing Dutchman. But every week he's looking to sell Mane, and every week something happens that he ends up keeping him another week. So I think maybe he'll eventually get rid of him for a Leicester mid in game week 30. But there was talk of a big hit to sell him on and get like a Spurs mid maybe this week or an Arsenal mid this week. I think for me, if I had De Bruyne still as well, like he's someone that I would just hold on to. I think it's not worth moving off him for this game week just because he doesn't have a double. But no, I think the captaincy metric this week is pretty clear. Like I'm personally on Salah. I'm not going to go for a defender. So Kane, I was going to say, is the other one I'd think about because I already have him. But yeah, it's tough because Kane has incredible ends to the season every season as well.
I think it's tight between Salah and Kane. I'll definitely go Salah because I'm sticking with the metric. Even 79% is way better than I ever do on my own. So I'm just using that as a crutch. And you know, both teams play away. Both matches are away for both teams. I don't know. I think it's a fine line between the two, and I wouldn't begrudge anybody going Kane. Yeah,
no, I really do like the King shot. How about for those who are triple captaining? My question would be, just before we park the captaincy section, is game week 29 still the best week to triple captain? So like if you had it and you'd, let's say, wild carded in 26, like do you still like these two fixtures away for Liverpool, you know, Brighton and Arsenal? Like, do we still go for Salah? Do we still, or even Kane for his double? Or do we wait? Is there like a better double? Because 36, you know, City could have two great games. But beyond that, I don't really see any other game weeks. I had a look, and all the big teams, they have one good fixture, one okay fixture. Like, you know, I feel like Salah right now, like chasing the title, this is as good a time as any personally. But
yeah,
would you say that like 36 is viable if you, let's say you've already bench boosted and therefore you have game week 36 free for something else, for a different chip?
I mean, if that's the situation you're in, then you're just gonna have to lay in that bed. But I think this is you have to attack this game with the triple. We don't know what game week 36 is going to look like in terms of players, injuries, teams on the beach.
They might be like out of the competition in the league, as you say. There's only 2 weeks left. They're focusing on Champions League.
There's a lot more variance in the later we get in the season. So take the sure thing this week if you still.
We know what Liverpool need now. We saw that. And talking of quotes again, my final thought on this section then is we saw the Salah quote. He was like, you know, I hit the crossbar twice, and maybe next game I'll score 3 goals. So, and that's about the Brighton game he's talking about. So, you know, I'm perfectly happy with that. Like, if the person I was going to captain or triple captain was saying, I hit the post twice, so next game I'll score 3. That's the exact kind of thing I want to be hearing out of the guy's mouth before I pop my once in the season triple captain. So, I would just go for it. Yeah, I think I'd be going that way. So, before we go into the questions from the Twitter, there's like 3 or 4 questions I'll read. But if you guys in the live chat can start to get any final questions you have for the game, we'll try to get out for about 1 hour 30. So in the meantime, just a couple of the shout outs to the guys who have made me laugh. They've said, I think Mr. A, after a bad game week, used Manscaped to come back stronger. So yeah, I think
boost your confidence.
If you find out at one of these FPL meets, I'm going to do a live shaving demonstration. Marin is coming again, I think. So he's still in the UK. He's not gone back to Singapore. And I've promised about 40 FPL managers that he's going to use the lawnmower live in the pub. So let's see how that goes and whether we get kicked out. I might upload it as a video for the viewers later in the members area only.
Members area, yes.
Yeah, I can't publicly shame Mariner, but all the haulers, you can see him for the little cost of £2. So let's just play the captaincy metric thing, and I'll get the questions up in the meantime in the background. Okay. Okay, great. So that is the end of these slides. So we've got a question from at KPI Ellsworth, so FPL Red Mist. So he was asking Ramsdale or Dubravka this game week. I think a lot of people are in this situation. They have both keepers. They're not bench boosting like I am, and they're going to have to just start one. Personally, I still think that Leicester game for Arsenal with Vardy missing could be a nice clean sheet. Arsenal did show they can keep a clean sheet against Liverpool with 10 men in the cup earlier in the season, just in January. And obviously Mane and Salah are back, but overall, I think Arsenal's defense is very well structured. I would not personally be starting Dubravka over Ramsdale in the double game week. It's 2 home fixtures for Ramsdale at the Emirates. I just can't play Dubravka. I think Dubravka's week was last week, and that's the week I played him over Ramsdale. But this week I would be playing Ramsdale personally.
Better keeper, better team, 2 home games, play Ramsdale.
And then the second question from FPL Red Mist is, should they start Broha with a single fixture or Mopai with a tough double? Since seeing this message 9 hours ago, someone told me some sort of murmurs about Mopai not being fit for double game 29. So I double check that. If that's the case, the fixtures are horrible anyway. For Brighton, they are genuinely disgusting. I would probably still play Broha against Watford. I would rather go that way. But check Mopai's fitness status. And then the final 2 questions are also from at Vardy Boys, another old friend of the show. Which combo would you guys prefer between Robertson and Martinelli or Saka and Doherty plus 1 million in the bank? So Robertson and Martinelli or Saka and Doherty?
Saka and Doherty.
Yeah, I think I'd be inclined to agree with the 1 million in the bank, more flexibility later.
Although I might. I mean, it depends on what his plans are and everything. I might do Saka and Matip.
Okay, so to still get the Liverpool defense rather. The reason I like the Saka Doherty is just because he's buying 3 fixtures from each of them in 2 game weeks. So you're getting 6 fixtures in 2 game weeks. And one of those game weeks is a big blank. So I really like that. Robert and Martinelli, what if Smith Rowe takes Martinelli's spot in one of those doubles or in the blank in 30 when you really need him? And then Robert also isn't playing in 30. So I think that, I consider that the higher upside maybe, but I think it's also much riskier. And the way we talked about Saka, he has the highest XGI per 90 of all the Arsenal players now season long. And he's the one I'd want in my team. So maybe if you can stretch Doherty to someone else from the Liverpool defense, that's perhaps the more appealing. And the final question from Tom Jones before we go to the live stream questions is, so at FPL Tom Jones, so ahoy there, who would you pick if you already own Lacazette and Saka? So Odegaard or Martinelli? I'm aware triple Arsenal attack is a little over the top. I have 5.6 million maximum to spend on a midfielder upgrade for Ramsey, and I'd rather buy a Spurs defender, i.e. Doherty, than White. So I assume he's got 2 Spurs, 2 Arsenal, wants to get rid of Ramsey despite him playing in 30 because the fixtures are currently West Ham away and then Arsenal, so they're not great. And he's trying to buy 3 fixtures out of a kind of mid, so Odegaard or Martinelli, and he'd rather have Doherty than White to get the triple, so 2 triples, sorry. So I think for me, just based on what we said earlier, Odegaard would be who I would go for. He is a little bit more expensive, and the fact that he's just in your price point, I would go for the nailedness of Odegaard personally. And he has shown that he is, alongside Saka, the most important part of our attack right now. So Martinelli is fantastic, but I think there is a genuine risk there. And I don't think he needs to be played into the ground when there is Smith Rowe just waiting.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, but based on what we said earlier, that right side triangle with the Odegaard, Saka, and Lacazette that's where you want to be in terms of your attacking assets.
Yep. So just to then go to the live stream questions. So just a couple minutes before we head. So we have okay, this one I'll read out just for the banter, but I'm not going to answer it from FPL Dallas. So Bruno Large pondering Will Bolly, false 9, triple captain shout. So I think people are looking to get off the Wolves defense at this stage. I don't know if I'd be buying one who's returned from a long-term injury, but I imagine the triple captain shout is tongue in cheek. Solomon T asks, so we will ask Mariner about this for you to run these numbers and have a little look. it is quite an interesting question. I'd love to know myself as well. So, if the metric ignored the first 7 to 10 game weeks, would Salah still be top of the captaincy metric? So we don't know today. We will find out for the next show. We have at FPL DGBoy88. Is bench boost good with Saar against Everton away, Rudiger against Newcastle home, Rafinha Norwich home, and Broho Watford home? So no double game week is there, but I think at least the 3 outfield players, they all have great home fixtures. Wolves against Everton isn't that bad, but it's not that exciting either. So what do you think? I think if that was me, like, I know they're not double game weekers, but maybe he has like 9, 10, 11 double game weekers in his 11. So if you do, then yeah, go for it. Like, you're not gonna get a bigger accumulation of fixtures piled up in one bench boost. If you've only got, like, say 4 doublers, and then you're bench boosting this, I would maybe look at your benching headaches and post us a screenshot of your 15-man squad, because it looks good on paper, but it's hard to say without, like, I don't know, like, should these players all be starting in your 11? And do you actually have, like, bad players you're starting? Like, do you have, like, Ramsey starting against West Ham in your 11 and he's actually your bench boost? Because I don't know how you've set up the bench here.
We're going to assume this is a rational human being that puts the best players on the pitch and the worst players on the bench. And if you do it a different way, then you're going to get the wrong answer. But I think this team is bench boost worthy for sure.
I think so. And so he says Saar, White, Ramsey, and Broho. So I think maybe in this scenario he's then putting White and Ramsey on the bench to put the other 2 from previously, Rudiger and Rafinha, into the 11. So I think for me that would probably be more likely. Like, I would probably look at the bench boost as White, Ramsey, and Broho, not the other way around. Like, I would not be benching Rudiger anyway. So if I wasn't bench boosting, I would be playing Rudiger against Newcastle, and if I wasn't bench boosting, I'd be playing Rafinha against Norwich, I think. So with that in mind, do you still think the bench boost is good with those players?
Not so much. No.
White, and it doesn't look as appealing with White and Ramsey, does it?
No, I mean, Ramsey ruins it.
I think so. I think
Ramsey ruins it.
I think Saar and Broho, they're still both good, and White has the 4 appearance points in him and maybe a clean sheet, but it's just that final slot. It's like, I don't know. Equally, do you still have a wild card? Because if you're going to wild card later on, then maybe that game week 36 is a better time for you. But I'm still relatively happy. I think it's a tough coin flip decision. Yeah, I err on the side of, if you've wild carded in recent weeks, I would just go for it, because now we know who's going to play. We know what the teams need to play for. We don't know what it will be like later in the season. You can focus on a stronger 11 going forward. So personally, I'd still steer towards the 50% to go for it. Final question from FPL Dallas before we go. Which one should I pick to start this game week? Matty Cash, Thiago Silva, or Ollie Watkins? I'm going to have a look at some of these guys are playing against.
Well,
oh, gosh.
Villa has West Ham. Right?
Yeah, so that's the Villa West Ham away.
Chelsea has Newcastle, so I say play Thiago Silva.
See, what worries me with the Rudiger rest is, like, does Thiago now end up being the one to miss game week 29? But I guess if he does, he won't be subbed on, right?
He won't be subbed on. Yeah.
So the good news is you'd then still get maybe Matty Cash anyway. I'm just having a look at. Yeah. See, so in that scenario, I don't think I'd play. Yeah, I think it would have to be Thiago or Watkins for me personally. I know Cash just had his massive 29 pointer, but I'm not sure I'd be playing Cash over Ollie Watkins, or from his own team, or even Thiago.
Or even Thiago against Newcastle. I think he's first, and then I'd start him.
And this final piece from the bench boost we were talking about. So Broho, Watford, Rafinha, Norwich, both not. Yeah, so these 2 were the 2 that really screwed me this week, because they both blanked. They got appearance points, got yellow for Rafinha right at the end of the game. Kulusevski sitting there with 10 points in the first bench slot, laughing at them, saying, like, Spurs versus Everton. I knew Everton were bad. Like, why did I chase these double game weekers? But equally, I just, like, Broho had been looking good. I thought he could do something. Rafinha, I thought maybe, like, he'd hit the ground running with the new manager, but Norwich is a bad enough fixture that I would be playing Rafinha over Broho if I did it. If I was you and you didn't bench boost, I would bench White, Ramsey, and Broho and not bench boost. If you don't bench boost them, definitely play Rafinha in all of this. But yeah, so I think that's the show for today. That's a wrap. As I mentioned, we are going to be putting the captaincy metric and the zonals and the FTRs on the community section for the members. So thank you to the 5 haulers so far who've signed up and support the channel to help us grow and get better tools for next year. And lots of exciting data that's coming that we will talk about in the next few episodes. Some exciting partnerships, not just the ones where we're saving lives and shaving balls. But don't forget, obviously, to hit the like, please, if you enjoyed the show and you've had a good game week with us. Do hit subscribe if you're new as well, and hit the bell so you can keep up to date with the new streams coming. I think for the Game Week 30 show, just to give you a kind of prior warning this week, unlike the one that was very late notice this week, we will probably be going live at about 6:30 UK next Wednesday. So I think that's Wednesday the 16th. It's the night before the fixtures in the double game week are played out. So I think it's just before Brighton, Spurs, Arsenal, Liverpool. So we decided to go before those matches. So if you want to come and just have some entertainment, watch the lineups come in with us next week and start to see how Game Week 29 is unraveling as well. But in the meantime, thank you everyone for joining. As I say, the Manscaped partnerships for the next month. So please do support us. I think if we can get 10 sales in the first month, they will look to do a long-term partnership with us and support and sponsor the channel and give some money towards growing it and giving better tools for you all. So I don't know what you need to get. I don't think there is a minimum spend. So even if you just want some crop revivers and you don't need the whole Lawnmower 4.0 experience, do have a look. But thank you guys. See all of you that are coming on Saturday to the next FPL meets as well in London Bridge. If you are from London or the surrounding area and you want to join us, Mariner is still in the UK. It's your last chance to see the official founder of the show and our beloved co-host and Dar Mariner himself. Come and enjoy his top 100 season, which is what we're rooting him on for. And have a beer with us. But otherwise, lovely to see everyone. Nice to catch up with you, Gabe, after a few weeks away, myself as well. And we'll be back next Wednesday, everyone. In the meantime, have a great game week 29 ahead.